Hello everyone, welcome back to another video, and today I'll be talking about the potential for a few thunderstorms across the UK. And this might be quite an in-depth or detailed video, but I'll start off by showing you my forecast here. This is nothing official like by the Met Office. This is just my thinking. You can see I've got two colours. The green colour is the marginal risk, that's 1 out of 5, generally isolated lightning, and then the yellow colour is the slight risk, that's 2 out of 5, that's lightning, more possible, potentially some thunderstorms, and you can see those areas at risk today there. I don't need to kind of explain. If we zoom around though, you can just see a few more of the cities in detail. If you live in any of these places, you are at risk of seeing a thunderstorm today, potentially. Just outside London, so sorry any London storm lovers like myself actually. But basically I'll start off with the forecast, and I'll just talk about two things that you kind of want/need for thunderstorms in the UK. Number one is you want instability, and that is kind of usually a difference in temperature between the surface and the and kind of the upper levels. And when you get instability, what tends to happen is that you get storms forming, and they often become thunderstorms when you have a lot of instability, because you get stronger vertical motion and stronger updrafts, and that just leads to more lightning. And usually instability is kind of a function of temperature. I'll just write temp there, and also kind of moisture availability. Not always, but that's kind of the simplified, kind of broken down stuff, because I want to show you kind of all of the interesting things, but I don't want it to be too complicated, and I want everyone to understand. So that's instability number one. Number two is lift. You generally want/need something to lift kind of the surface air, allow it to rise and allow it to form kind of storms and showers and thunderstorms. And lift can either be kind of large scale synoptic lift, or convergence zones, or weather fronts, or outflow boundaries, that kind of thing. I'll show you which one we're focusing on today a bit later. But you can basically start off by looking at the satellite image, and what we want to see, counterintuitively actually, is clearing skies. And actually, you can see we've got those clearer skies now developing across this kind of zone here, and that means in this places the sun is going to be shining down on the ground, the temperature is going to rise, and that instability that I just talked about is going to go up. So we're already seeing the stage set for some possible showers and thunderstorms today. And actually notice we've got these kind of bubbly looking clouds, and that's likely our cumulus clouds starting to develop with showers there, and you can see those showers starting to form across parts of the UK. So that's just a quick look at the current observations. You may be wondering, what is our lift source going to be today? Our main source of lift is likely to be kind of convergence zones and troughs. This is a surface pressure chart from the Met Office, and you can see this is UK, this is lunchtime today. We've got quite an unstable pattern. We've got a low, a slack low kind of hanging right, we've got one to the north, and we've also got somewhat of a low kind of hanging just right across central England. And then also you might have seen a couple of these black lines here, and those are our troughs. That's kind of an area of vertical motion and lift, so those could become some sort of focus for storm development during the day. We also have a cold front, and that's bringing heavy rain to parts of Ireland. Only a low end thunderstorm risk there, but you can see generally a showery, unstable pattern. And the main, what I was just talking about, is the main kind of threat for lift today is going to be convergence zones. This is windy.com, a really great website actually, and this is kind of the forecast wind pattern for around 3 o'clock in the afternoon from the UKV Met Office model. And let me just change this so you can really see this pattern, and you can see there what I'm talking about when I say convergence zones, because you can see some places in this kind of slack pattern when the wind is not super strong. We've got sea breezes, we've got kind of the land heating at different rates, leading to kind of the pattern just becoming all kind of quite messy. And we've got quite a few areas of convergence across central England, as you can see, wind pushing in like this, and some areas like that, and also a zone across parts of southern England there as well, and along the south coast. And that's going to essentially allow, during the afternoon, the winds coming like this on each direction, and when that occurs, we get our lift, we get our vertical motion. And so it does look likely that we're going to get showers developing from those kind of convergence zones. And if I show you one potential forecast scenario from the UKV model, you can see actually our showers quite nicely follow our convergence zones there. One into northern England through the Midlands, got potentially a significant one through the southwest England there. But you can see our showers do quite nicely follow our convergence zone. So generally we are expecting a few showers to develop via this kind of way of forming, but the showers don't really mean anything if there's no instability. And now we'll look at the instability forecast from a few different models. This is a product called CAPE, which stands for convective or convectively available potential energy, measured in joules per kilogram, so kind of just physics stuff there. But basically you want more energy, which means more instability, and those thunderstorms develop a bit more. And typically in the UK, anything above the 500 range is fairly significant and often sufficient actually for lightning. And actually you can see this is by the high resolution French model. You can see we've actually got initially during the afternoon our CAPE developed a few pockets. I don't know what that was, sorry, that's a mouse. But we've initially got a few pockets of CAPE, and then that CAPE develops more widely into actually quite unstable for this time of year, 500 to 800 locally, especially through parts of Wales, Midlands, also coinciding with our convergence zone there across the southwest, which I just mentioned, and this also coinciding with our convergence zone there. And as you can see, that kind of area moves eastwards during the afternoon, kind of round here by 5 o'clock, but actually it starts to weaken as the sun goes down, and that's because, like I mentioned, instability is kind of temperature and moisture, and when the sun goes down, of course, the temperature drops. If I show you the CAPE forecast from another model, the arpegg model, you can see I think these are kind of similar models, so it makes sense that they're showing the same thing, but you can see widely fairly unstable through this kind of zone, potentially as much as kind of 800 joules per kilogram of CAPE in places, and so you can see it should be enough that when we get our showers forming, they do actually fall they do actually have lightning and heavy rain, not just kind of weak light rain and no lightning. Let's take a look if we have any convergence zones on here. You can see convergence zones showing up on this model as well. That's good, builds confidence. And let's just take a look at the precipitation forecast here. As you can see, this model is forecasting showers to extend kind of along convergence zones through parts of central England and northern England, and then this kind of zone as well through central and southern areas, potentially merging into something a bit more organised by the afternoon. But I tend to find that usually when you get our showers kind of merging like this, they don't really become active. What we get is usually the environment becomes saturated, that is, that there's a lot of moisture, and the lightning usually tends to go down. Another kind of caveat, if you like, is these model precipitation forecasts are often very unreliable. It's better to get kind of a look at the broader picture instead of just forecasting by using these. But that's kind of, if you kind of start to see some of the lines up with this kind of outlook, convergence zone here with decent CAPE, and kind of generally showery airflow through this zone with convergence zones extending up here, all with decent instability. And I think I just mentioned it, but another way of kind of looking at the potential for lightning activity is the saturation, because typically if your profile is super saturated, like 100% humidity throughout, what happens is the lightning is quite limited. It can be quite limited, especially with lower CAPE. It's like kind of during March, and you generally want kind of to be more in this kind of 20 to 70% zone for our lightning. And actually you can see we've got this rain about here through eastern areas, and that's got quite high saturation, quite high moisture, low instability. You can see wrapping in we have slightly dry air developing, and that kind of moves eastward during the afternoon. And I do reckon that by 3-4 o'clock, potentially not all of the UK, so this area is still looking quite saturated, but especially the north and kind of the western and southern areas of this of kind of England and my risk zone, the profiles are not super saturated. So I do think that lightning could be not widespread, but I do think we could get a couple of thunderstorms. And then one more thing before I finish off this video, and this is kind of slightly more not advanced but kind of complicated stuff, and this is a very kind of conditional threat. I'm not relying too much on this in this particular setup, but like I said earlier, another way of getting lift is by large scale synoptic lift or ascent, and one way you can kind of infer this is by looking at vorticity charts. And now vorticity is just a fancy way of kind of saying spin in the atmosphere, kind of the air moving around and kind of being very turbulent, that kind of thing. And you typically get vorticity associated with areas of vertical motion and kind of temperature contrasts or kind of significant features of kind of weather. And you can see we've got lots of vorticity with that cold front moving, and I think it's a cold front. Yeah, the cold front there. We've got a lot of vorticity there. That's not what I'm concerned about because there's not quite enough instability in this region. But we do actually have this kind of very weak, but still there, low during the afternoon across parts of England. This actually brought kind of showery rain and actually heavy rain currently to some parts of central and southern England, as you can see there. But if I show you something, this is a bit kind of tedious to explain, but I'll just try and give it my best go. Essentially, when you get kind of advection of vorticity, and advection is not, it's kind of a way of saying the wind transporting something, but when you get advection of vorticity, you typically get vertical motion in that zone, and that's a lift, and that can allow showers and storms or just precipitation to develop. And actually the GFS model here is showing this ring of vorticity across parts of the southeast during the afternoon, with actually some kind of weak vorticity advection, the wind moving through like this, and kind of quite different pattern like there, but potentially some weak vorticity advection in this zone here. As you can see, that's the wind transporting the vorticity into this area, and while it looks like there's not going to be much instability here, I do think we could potentially see a couple of showers and maybe thunderstorms developing in this zone during the afternoon. And actually that does line up slightly with some model forecasts. You can see this is the UKV model. We've got a kind of low, that's the upper low. You can see slight evidence of the low on the surface pattern there, with our rain, and that kind of weakens away. But notice during the afternoon potentially something developing on the edge of that as we move through like that. So potentially some support for a couple of thunderstorms in this zone where we've got some minor vorticity advection. That's something I'm keeping an eye on, and I'm kind of just learning this stuff from a textbook that I got for my birthday, so bit kind of just practicing but hopefully that plays out. But anyway, that's kind of an overview of my forecast, what I'm thinking. Some showers developing through here, potentially from vorticity advection, kind of large scale ascent. Convergence zones, though, is going to be the main forcing for thunderstorms to develop in moderate instability, potentially some issues with saturation, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. And then as storms kind of merge eastwards through the day, that lightning risk potentially extending a bit further east, but this is generally my kind of what I'm thinking at the moment, and I'm going to finish that video now. But thank you so much for watching, especially if you've got this far. I hope it wasn't too boring, and if you've got any suggestions, then write them in the comments, because this is something I plan to do all summer. Anyways, thank you guys, and have a great